Imagine someone you care about deeply, someone who guards their heart, builds walls around their emotions, and seems to shrink away whenever love approaches. These are avoidant individuals. They aren't cold. They aren't unfeeling. They simply have a deeply ingrained need to protect themselves from vulnerability. And here's the challenge: traditional expressions of love, I love you, I need you, I can't live without you, often bounce off these walls. They might even push them further away, but words, carefully chosen, intentionally delivered, can bypass these defenses. There are 3 words that reach an avoidant deeper than love ever could. The first word is I understand. Understanding is different from agreeing. It signals that you see them, you hear them, and you respect their experience. For an avoidant person, this is transformative. It says, you are safe, you are recognized, you do not need to hide. The second word is take your time. Avoidants fear pressure, it makes them retreat. By saying these words, you are giving them space to process, to engage at their own pace, and to know that connection does not demand surrender. Patience communicates respect. Respect communicates love. The third word is I'm here. Consistency matters more than intensity. Being present, even quietly, even without demand, offers something no grand gesture ever could: trust. These 3 words together build a bridge that love alone cannot construct. So, what does this teach us? Love is not always about passion, grand declarations, or immediate closeness. Sometimes, love is the courage to be quiet, the patience to wait, and the humility to see another person for who they truly are. And when we speak these words, we touch hearts that have long been protected, hearts that crave connection even if they cannot admit it. In every relationship, in every interaction, remember this: the most profound connections are not always built with intensity. They are built with understanding, patience, and presence. 3 simple words. Infinite impact. Avoidant attachment is a style of relating to others that develops early in life, often as a response to caregivers who were inconsistent, emotionally unavailable, or overly critical. It is not a choice made consciously. It is a survival mechanism, a way to cope with the reality that emotional needs might not be reliably met. Individuals with avoidant attachment learn, implicitly, that expressing vulnerability can lead to disappointment, judgment, or even rejection. Over time, they internalize the belief that closeness is risky and independence is safe. This does not mean they are incapable of love or connection. Rather, their approach to intimacy is filtered through a lens of self-protection. Avoidants often appear self-sufficient, confident, or even detached, but beneath this exterior lies a complex emotional landscape where closeness triggers both desire and fear. Avoidant attachment is characterized by a tension between longing for connection and a fear of being engulfed or controlled. People with this style typically maintain emotional distance, sometimes unconsciously, to prevent feeling overwhelmed. They may struggle to share personal thoughts, fears, or desires, not because they lack them, but because sharing them exposes them to potential hurt. In relationships, avoidants might engage in behaviors that seem contradictory. They seek connection, yet simultaneously push others away when they feel too close. They might respond to emotional intensity with withdrawal, silence, or rationalization. This push-pull dynamic is not a flaw. It is a strategy that has helped them navigate emotional environments that felt unsafe. Recognizing this is critical for understanding avoidant attachment. It is rooted in self-preservation, not a lack of care or capacity for intimacy. Communication patterns in avoidant individuals reveal their core need for autonomy and respect. Words that suggest demand, expectation, or urgency often trigger defensiveness. Grand declarations of love, constant check-ins, or emotional appeals may feel threatening rather than comforting. Conversely, messages that convey understanding, patience, and non-judgmental presence can create a sense of safety. Avoidants respond to interactions that honor their need for space while affirming their value. They are highly sensitive to authenticity. Superficial or manipulative attempts at connection are quickly perceived and may reinforce withdrawal. Understanding avoidant attachment means recognizing the delicate balance between offering closeness and respecting boundaries, between expressing care and honoring independence. Avoidant individuals often develop strategies to manage the anxiety that intimacy provokes. They may compartmentalize emotions, focus on tasks, or immerse themselves in work or hobbies as ways to regulate closeness. They might intellectualize feelings rather than experience them fully, creating the impression of detachment. This is not a lack of depth, it is a protective strategy. Deep understanding requires looking beyond surface behaviors to the underlying motivations: fear of loss, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being dependent. Awareness of these dynamics allows for more empathetic and effective communication. Avoidants are not inaccessible. They respond powerfully to approaches that validate their autonomy while gently inviting trust. Recognizing avoidant attachment also involves understanding its triggers. Situations that mimic past experiences of rejection, inconsistency, or emotional neglect can activate defensive responses. Criticism, pressure to commit, or intense displays of emotion may lead to withdrawal or defensiveness. Conversely, consistency, reliability, and calm reassurance can help prevent defensive patterns from taking hold. Avoidance may take longer to trust, and progress may appear slow, but this does not equate to indifference. In fact, once trust is established, avoidant individuals are capable of profound loyalty and emotional investment, though they continue to navigate vulnerability cautiously. Understanding avoidant attachment highlights the importance of language, tone, and pacing in communication. Avoidants are attuned to subtle cues and can detect when intentions are genuine or coercive. Words that honor their experience, respect their timing, and affirm their presence without demanding immediate reciprocity can penetrate emotional barriers. Unlike overt declarations of love, which may be perceived as overwhelming or controlling, these approaches convey safety, reliability, and acceptance, the foundational elements that allow a person with avoidant attachment to gradually open up. By framing communication around understanding, patience, and presence, one can connect with avoidance on a level that feels both safe and meaningful. Words carry a unique kind of influence that actions alone often cannot replicate, particularly when it comes to emotionally guarded individuals. While gestures, gifts, and physical expressions of affection can convey care, they rely on external demonstration, which may not penetrate deep psychological defenses. Avoidant individuals, in particular, can perceive overt actions as attempts to manipulate, control, or encroach on their autonomy. They may admire the effort, but their walls often remain intact. Words, however, have the capacity to articulate understanding, acknowledgement, and validation directly to the mind and heart simultaneously. The precision of language allows for a nuanced communication that gestures, no matter how well intentioned, cannot fully achieve. The impact of words is amplified when they are intentional, deliberate, and aligned with genuine empathy. Avoidants are highly sensitive to authenticity. They can detect insincerity, over-exaggeration, or pressure disguised as affection. Words that feel authentic can bypass defenses because they provide clarity and reassurance without imposing expectation. When someone speaks with awareness, choosing phrases that validate experience, respect autonomy, and convey presence without demand, it creates a bridge between emotional distance and engagement. The right words signal safety, whereas gestures alone may be interpreted as attempts to close the distance prematurely, triggering withdrawal. Words can also communicate understanding in a precise way that gestures cannot. Saying, "I understand what you're feeling," or "I hear you," explicitly acknowledges the inner experience of an avoidant individual. While a hug or a smile can communicate care on a physical level, they cannot articulate recognition of emotional reality. Avoidants often struggle with the perception that others truly see them for who they are beneath the exterior. Carefully chosen words allow an external observer to recognize and name the internal experience, which, for someone avoidant, can feel revolutionary. This recognition fosters trust, reduces anxiety about closeness, and signals that emotional expression will not lead to judgment or overbearing intrusion. Timing and consistency of words are equally critical. Words spoken impulsively or during moments of tension may be discounted or misinterpreted. Avoidants often respond more to calm, measured, and consistent communication that respects their pace. Unlike gestures that are often situational and transient, words have permanence. They can be recalled, reflected upon, and internalized. A carefully chosen phrase delivered in a non-demanding tone becomes a touchstone for the avoidant mind, something they can process, return to, and let settle over time. This contrasts with gestures, which, while meaningful in the moment, often do not provide the same enduring reassurance. The choice of language is also crucial. Words that convey control, judgment, or expectation are likely to provoke resistance. Phrases such as "you must" or "you need to" are interpreted as pressure, and pressure is the primary trigger for avoidant withdrawal. On the other hand, words that communicate observation, support, and acceptance, such as "I see," "I'm here," and "take your time," invite engagement rather than confrontation. They allow the avoidant individual to feel seen without being cornered, to process without feeling coerced, and to participate in connection on their own terms. Words can also create psychological scaffolding for vulnerability. Vulnerability is frightening for avoidant individuals, yet it is necessary for deep connection. When words are used strategically to establish safety, predictability, and understanding, they make vulnerability tolerable. Phrases that normalize emotions, acknowledge fears, or express willingness to wait can slowly erode the instinct to retreat. Over time, repeated verbal affirmations of presence, understanding, and patience create an internal sense of security that gestures alone cannot cultivate. The mind of an avoidant individual begins to associate emotional closeness with safety rather than threat, enabling them to engage more fully. Words can serve as a foundation for long-term relational growth. Gestures may inspire immediate positive feelings, but words can create a cognitive and emotional framework that shapes perception, trust, and attachment patterns over time. Avoidants who rely heavily on their internal assessment of safety and autonomy are more likely to respond to communication that explicitly respects both. Words create meaning. They provide a map for understanding and navigating emotional terrain, clarifying intentions, and establishing boundaries without conflict. Through intentional language, connection becomes not an imposition, but an invitation, and intimacy evolves into a shared choice rather than a forced proximity. The three words that touch an avoidant deeper than love are not grand or romantic. They are simple, deliberate, and profoundly human. Each word addresses a core need of the avoidant individual: safety, autonomy, and presence. These words work in combination, creating a psychological environment where trust can develop without pressure, where vulnerability becomes tolerable, and where connection grows naturally rather than forced. The first word is "I understand." Understanding is distinct from agreement or solution seeking. It acknowledges the emotional and cognitive reality of the other person. For avoidance, being understood validates their experience without threatening their autonomy. It communicates recognition of their feelings, fears, and boundaries, which is often more valuable than expressions of love or devotion. "I understand" signals that you see them as they are, not as you wish them to be. It reduces the instinct to protect themselves through withdrawal, because it conveys that their inner world matters and is accepted without judgment. When this phrase is spoken with sincerity, it can penetrate the habitual walls of self-reliance and mistrust. The second word is "take your time." Avoidant individuals have an acute sensitivity to perceived pressure. Pressure triggers defensive mechanisms such as withdrawal, emotional detachment, or rationalization. By inviting someone to take their time, you are acknowledging their pace, honoring their autonomy, and signaling that intimacy will not be rushed. This phrase communicates patience, not passivity, and reassurance, not resignation. It reduces anxiety about closeness by eliminating the fear of immediate demand or expectation. The avoidant mind interprets this as freedom rather than restriction, as choice rather than obligation. Over repeated interactions, this phrase helps create a rhythm of engagement that feels safe. It teaches that connection can occur without force, that commitment can coexist with autonomy, and that trust does not require surrendering control. The power of these words lies in their ability to create psychological breathing room, allowing the avoidant individual to approach closeness voluntarily rather than defensively. The third word is, I'm here. Presence is the cornerstone of trust, particularly for those who have learned that others cannot be relied upon to stay. Saying, I'm here, conveys consistency, reliability, and emotional availability without demanding reciprocation. Avoidants are highly attuned to inconsistency. They notice if support is conditional or intermittent. The simple declaration of presence assures them that they are not alone, that emotional engagement does not equate to control or intrusion. Unlike gestures, which are often situational or performative, words of presence can be internalized, reflected upon, and trusted over time. I'm here does not require immediate emotional expression or vulnerability. It offers a quiet foundation that the avoidant individual can approach at their own pace. It communicates loyalty, patience, and stability, all of which are more impactful than overt demonstrations of love, which can feel overwhelming or threatening. Together, these three words create a powerful framework for connection. I understand validates experience and reduces defensive tension. Take your time, respects autonomy and reduces anxiety. I'm here provides consistency and builds trust. Each word addresses a different psychological need, yet they function synergistically to create a sense of safety, acceptance, and openness. For someone with avoidant attachment, this combination is transformative because it bypasses the triggers that typically provoke withdrawal. Rather than attempting to force intimacy, these words invite it gently and respectfully, allowing connection to emerge organically. The effectiveness of these words also depends on delivery. Tone, timing, and context are critical. They must be sincere, patient, and consistent. Repetition reinforces reliability and gradually reshapes internal expectations about relationships. Avoidant individuals are highly sensitive to cues of authenticity. Any hint of coercion, manipulation, or insincerity can immediately undo progress. When spoken with genuine intent, these words create a psychological environment in which the avoidant mind begins to associate emotional closeness with safety rather than threat. Over time, they can become anchors of trust, guiding the avoidant person toward deeper engagement and emotional expression without compromising their need for autonomy. These words are not just tools for romantic relationships. They are principles for any meaningful connection with an avoidant individual. They can be applied in friendships, family dynamics, mentorships, and professional relationships where emotional sensitivity is required. Their impact lies in their simplicity and universality. Understanding, patience, and presence are human needs that transcend context. By consistently embodying these principles through these three words, one can create connections that are resilient, respectful, and profoundly impactful, demonstrating that the depth of relationship is often measured not by intensity, but by trust, respect, and unwavering presence. Actionable takeaways focus on how to effectively apply the understanding of avoidant attachment and the power of the three transformative words in real life interactions. Communication with avoidant individuals is not about convincing, changing, or overwhelming them. It is about creating a framework that allows them to engage safely on their own terms. The first principle is awareness of triggers. Avoidant individuals respond to perceived pressure, intrusion, or judgment with withdrawal or defensiveness, recognizing the subtle signs, tension in their tone, hesitation, avoidance of eye contact, or repeated distancing behaviors, can guide how and when to communicate. By observing these signals, one can adjust the approach to reduce the likelihood of triggering their protective mechanisms. Awareness also involves understanding patterns of behavior over time, noting when withdrawal is situational versus a response to stress, and adapting interactions accordingly. The second principle is intentional language. Words are most impactful when they are chosen deliberately to address the needs of safety, autonomy, and trust. Avoidants respond best to phrases that validate their experience without demanding immediate reciprocity. Saying "I understand" communicates recognition and empathy. "Take your time" conveys patience and respect for their autonomy. "I'm here" reinforces reliability and presence. These words must be sincere, consistent, and contextually appropriate. Beyond the three key words, any additional communication should maintain the same tone: supportive, non-judgmental, and free of pressure. Avoid directives, ultimatums, or emotionally loaded appeals, as these are likely to provoke resistance. Over time, the consistent use of intentional language strengthens relational trust and reduces emotional barriers. The third principle is consistency in action and presence. Avoidants are sensitive to inconsistency, which reinforces fears that connection is conditional or unsafe. Actions must align with words. Promises kept, boundaries respected, and repeated reassurance without intrusion establish credibility. Even small gestures of reliability, checking in without overwhelming, responding predictably, being available without forcing closeness, communicate stability. This consistency provides a framework in which the avoidant individual can explore vulnerability without fear of abandonment or coercion. Trust grows incrementally, not instantly, and repeated patterns of alignment between words and actions create the foundation for lasting connection. The fourth principle is patience and pacing. Progress with avoidant individuals is often slow and non-linear. Attempts to accelerate emotional intimacy can backfire, leading to withdrawal or skepticism. Understanding that avoidance is a protective mechanism rather than disinterest allows one to maintain patience without taking distance personally. Allowing the avoidant individual to set the rhythm of engagement fosters a sense of autonomy while gradually building comfort with closeness. Effective pacing involves balancing presence with space, engagement with observation, and support with respect for boundaries. It requires emotional intelligence, self-regulation, and the ability to tolerate uncertainty without reacting impulsively. The fifth principle is non-judgmental empathy. Avoidants may perceive judgment or criticism as threats to their emotional safety. Offering empathy without evaluating, correcting, or interpreting their behavior ensures that connection feels safe rather than risky. Statements like "I see why you might feel that way," or "it's understandable that you need space," validate experience without applying pressure. This approach reduces anxiety, reinforces trust, and models emotional attunement. Over time, repeated experiences of empathetic engagement allow the avoidant individual to internalize that expressing feelings does not result in punishment or rejection, gradually reshaping relational expectations. The sixth principle is practical reinforcement of the three transformative words. Beyond saying "I understand," "take your time," and "I'm here," it is important to integrate these concepts into daily interactions naturally. Understanding can be demonstrated by reflecting back feelings, listening actively, and avoiding assumptions. Patience can be shown by giving space for decision making and refraining from repeated prompting. Presence can be reinforced by reliably showing up, following through on commitments, and maintaining calm availability during moments of withdrawal. The repetition of these principles through both words and behavior reinforces psychological safety and fosters a deeper sense of connection. Actionable takeaways include self-awareness and emotional regulation for the communicator. Interacting with avoidant individuals requires self-reflection on one's own expectations, insecurities, and impulses. Reacting with frustration, impatience, or attempts to control the relationship can trigger the very defenses one seeks to bypass. By cultivating awareness, regulating emotional responses, and maintaining a supportive stance, the communicator provides a stable relational environment. This approach ensures that the avoidant individual experiences connection as a choice rather than an imposition, increasing the likelihood of meaningful engagement over time.